My name is Isla. I'm 35 years old and I never expected my own family vacation would end with me kicking everyone out, especially not my husband. After years of building my resort empire from nothing, I thought bringing James and his family to my newest luxury property would finally earn their respect. Instead, my mother-in-law Patricia stood in my living room and announced this house was for real family only. The silence that followed told me everything I needed to know. Before I continue my story, where are you watching from today? Drop your location in the comments, hit subscribe, and stick around to see how I turned what could have been my breaking point into the most satisfying moment of my life. I grew up in a small coastal town where luxury resorts were places my family could never afford to visit. My parents worked multiple jobs just to keep our modest home, but they gave me something more valuable than money. They instilled in me a fierce work ethic and an entrepreneurial spirit that would change my life. Isla, baby, my mother would say, while rubbing her tired hands after a double shift at the local diner. You see those fancy hotels on the hill? Someday you could own one if you work smart and never let anyone tell you what you deserve. Those words became my mantra through the countless nights I studied business books by flashlight after my parents thought I was asleep. While other kids dreamed of being doctors or teachers, I drew detailed plans of my future hotels on notebook paper, imagining every room and amenity. When I turned 16, I got my first job as a housekeeper at a small beachside motel. The owner, Mr. Johnson, noticed how I reorganized the supply closet without being asked and started leaving the rooms with special touches that guests commented on. "You have an eye for this business," he told me after promoting me to front desk within 6 months. "You understand that hospitality is about making people feel special." College was a struggle financially, but I managed to piece together scholarships and worked nights at an upscale hotel downtown. I majored in business with a focus on hospitality management, often falling asleep over my textbooks after midnight shifts. My classmates went to parties while I analyzed market trends and property values in my rare free moments. It was during my junior year that I met Sandra Thompson, a guest lecturer who had built a small chain of boutique hotels from scratch. Something about my questions caught her attention, and she asked to meet with me after class. "You think differently," she said over coffee. "Most students ask about marketing strategies or management hierarchies. You asked about how to maintain quality control while scaling and whether property ownership or management contracts offered better long-term stability." Sandra became my mentor, offering me an internship that summer and eventually a management position after graduation. Under her guidance, I learned the intricacies of the business beyond what any textbook could teach. I watched how she handled difficult guests with grace, negotiated with vendors, and inspired loyalty in her staff. "The secret," she confided one evening as we reviewed quarterly reports, "is to never forget that you're selling an experience, not just a room. People will forget a fancy chandelier, but they'll remember how you made them feel." By 26, I had saved every penny possible and secured a risky loan to purchase my first property. It was a struggling 12-room hotel on the verge of foreclosure. The peeling paint and outdated furnishings didn't discourage me. I saw potential where others saw failure. For 6 months, I lived in one of the rooms working around the clock, renovating, rebranding, and rebuilding the hotel's reputation. I learned plumbing from YouTube videos to save on contractor costs. I repainted rooms myself after full days of managing the front desk. I personally wrote thank you notes to every guest. The transformation was slow but steady. The Coastal Haven Boutique Hotel became known for its personalized service and attention to detail. Within 2 years, occupancy rates went from 30% to consistently sold out during season. The loan sharks who had laughed when I applied for financing stopped laughing when I paid off my loan 3 years early. My second property came 3 years later, a larger hotel with 40 rooms and a restaurant that had fallen on hard times after its owner passed away. I honored his legacy by keeping longtime staff and incorporating elements of the original design while modernizing the experience. The Golden Tide Resort became my proving ground for scaling my business model without losing the personal touch that had made my first venture successful. The next 6 years brought strategic acquisitions of properties with potential that others missed. I developed a reputation for transforming failing hotels into destination experiences. My company, Shoreline Luxury Properties, grew to include 3 successful resorts of increasing size and prestige. Then came the opportunity I had been working toward my entire career. The Serenity Shores Resort, a sprawling beachfront property with 100 rooms, 3 restaurants, and exclusive access to one of the most beautiful private beaches on the coast. The asking price was steep, but my track record allowed me to secure financing from investors who now eagerly supported my vision. Taking ownership of Serenity Shores was the culmination of years of sacrifice and relentless work. The previous owners had let standards slip, but the bones of the place were magnificent. I spent months personally overseeing renovations, hiring the best staff, and implementing systems to ensure 5-star service throughout the property. What made this achievement particularly sweet was that I had done it entirely on my own. No family wealth to give me a head start, no connections to open doors. Just the values my parents had instilled in me and my own determination to succeed. The joy I felt watching guests experience the luxury I had created was indescribable. Families making memories they would treasure forever. Couples falling in love against the backdrop of perfect sunsets. Business executives finding inspiration in beautiful surroundings. I had created a place where people felt special, valued, and cared for. That's what made the idea of bringing my husband's family to experience my newest resort so exciting. After years of subtle dismissals and not-so-subtle judgments about my background, I thought this tangible proof of my success would finally earn their respect. I wanted to share my pride, my joy, and the beautiful world I had built with the family I had married into. I had no idea that this hopeful gesture would lead to the most painful and ultimately liberating moment of my adult life. I met James at a business conference in Chicago where I was invited to speak about innovation in the hospitality industry. He sat in the front row, asked thoughtful questions, and approached me afterward with genuine interest in my business philosophy. Unlike many men who seemed intimidated by my success, James appeared genuinely impressed. "The way you talked about creating experiences rather than just providing services really resonated with me," he said as we shared coffee after my presentation. "As an architect, I think about how spaces make people feel, not just how they function." James was tall with the kind eyes and an easy smile. His confidence was quiet but unmistakable. When he mentioned he designed boutique hotels among other projects, the conversation flowed naturally into a discussion of how architecture and hospitality intersect to create memorable environments. By the end of that first conversation, I found myself laughing more than I had in months. The pressures of running multiple properties often left little time for personal connections, but something about James made me want to make time. "Would you be interested in dinner tomorrow?" he asked as we were about to part ways. "I know a place with an incredible view of the lake. The chef does amazing things with local ingredients." That dinner turned into a weekend exploring Chicago together, which led to months of long-distance calls and weekend visits. James lived in Boston while my home base was on the West Coast. Despite the distance, our connection deepened with each conversation. I learned that James came from a wealthy East Coast family with deep roots in Boston society. His father, William, had built a successful investment firm, and his mother, Patricia, was involved in numerous charity organizations. They had provided James with every advantage from elite private schools to Ivy League education. "They had my life mapped out from birth," James confided during one of our late-night calls. "Take over the family business, marry someone from our social circle, join the right clubs." They were shocked when I chose architecture instead. That small act of rebellion gave me hope that James truly understood the value of forging your own path. He spoke admiringly of my self-made success and never seemed to view my different background as a liability. After 8 months of dating, long-distance James surprised me by showing up at my office with a proposal to open his own architectural firm on the West Coast. He wanted to be closer to me to build something of his own near where I was building my empire. "We make each other better," he said simply. "I've never felt so inspired, so understood by anyone before." 6 months later, he proposed during a sunset walk on the beach near my first hotel. The ring was beautiful, but simple, chosen with my taste in mind rather than to showcase wealth. I said yes without hesitation, believing I had found a true partner who valued me for exactly who I was. The wedding planning revealed the first cracks in what I had believed was unconditional acceptance. Patricia insisted on hosting the wedding in Boston at their country club, despite our preference for a smaller ceremony on the beach. "Darling, a wedding is about family traditions," she said with a tight smile when I suggested alternatives. "The Ramirez family has celebrated weddings at the Westbrook Club for generations." I compromised, wanting to start our marriage on positive terms with his family. The wedding was elegant and beautiful, but distinctly more their style than ours. Throughout the planning process and at the event itself, I noticed Patricia's subtle comments about my background. "It must be so interesting coming from such humble beginnings," she remarked at the rehearsal dinner. "James has always had such a charitable heart." James defended me, but in ways that sometimes felt like he was minimizing rather than addressing his mother's behavior. "Mom's just old-fashioned," he would say after particularly stinging interactions. "She means well. She'll warm up to you once she gets to know you better." I chose to believe him. After all, it had taken years for me to win over some difficult business associates. Surely with time and patience, Patricia would see that I was a good wife who truly loved her son. Our first year of marriage was a beautiful balance of supporting each other's careers while building a life together. James's architectural firm quickly gained recognition for innovative designs that prioritized both aesthetics and experience. I continued expanding my resort business with James, occasionally designing renovation elements for my properties. We settled into a modern home overlooking the ocean, created a circle of friends who shared our values, and began discussing the possibility of children in the future. The only shadow on our happiness was the continued tension with James's family during our visits to Boston or their rare trips to see us. William James's father seemed more accepting. He asked thoughtful questions about my business and appeared genuinely impressed by what I had accomplished. Patricia, however, remained cool and judgmental, making comments about everything from my clothing choices to my management style. "I've heard that your staff turnover is quite high," she remarked during one visit, though it was entirely untrue. My employee retention rates were among the best in the industry. James continued to make excuses for his mother and changed the subject rather than addressing her behavior directly. I began to realize that conflict avoidance was deeply ingrained in their family dynamic. Problems weren't solved, they were smoothed over and ignored. Still, I held on to hope that with time, Patricia would see me as family. That's why when our third anniversary approached, I suggested hosting his entire family at my newest resort property. I wanted to share my greatest professional achievement with them and hopefully bridge the gap that remained between us. "That sounds wonderful," James said enthusiastically. "Mom and Dad haven't taken a real vacation in years, and Ashley and Tom have been talking about needing a beach getaway." I didn't tell James that I planned to keep my ownership of the resort a surprise. I wanted his family to experience the property as guests first, to appreciate it on its own merits before knowing it was mine. Perhaps naively, I believed that seeing my success firsthand would finally earn their respect. As I began planning what I hoped would be the perfect family vacation, I had no idea I was actually setting the stage for a confrontation that would change everything. Planning the perfect experience for my in-laws became my personal mission. If they could see what I had built, experience the level of luxury and service I provided, surely they would finally understand my value. The Serenity Shores Resort was my crowning achievement, and I wanted every detail to be flawless for their visit. I called the general manager, Marcus, into my office 2 months before their scheduled arrival. "This isn't just any group of VIP guests," I explained as we reviewed the reservation details. "This is my husband's family, and I want them to have the absolute best experience possible." Marcus, who had been with me since my second property, understood immediately. "We'll pull out all the stops, Ms. Ramirez. Which villa were you thinking of placing them in?" "The oceanfront signature villa for Patricia and William," I decided. "It has the best views and the most privacy. Ashley and Tom can take the beachside premium suite next door. And James and I will stay in the owner's residence, of course." The owner's residence was typically reserved for my personal use when I visited the property, a spectacular 3-bedroom villa with a private pool, direct beach access, and a dedicated staff. Most guests didn't even know it existed. "I want to keep my ownership quiet for now," I added. As far as they know, we're just guests who managed to get a good rate through my industry connections. I want them to experience the resort on its own merits before I reveal that it's mine." Marcus raised an eyebrow but nodded. "We'll make sure the staff is briefed. No one will reveal your connection to the property until you're ready." For the next several weeks, I personally oversaw every aspect of the preparation. I hired additional housekeeping staff to ensure every corner of the property sparkled. I worked with the executive chef to plan special menus highlighting local seafood and produce. I arranged for custom welcome baskets in each room with personalized touches for each family member. For William, a selection of rare whiskeys and a handmade humidor filled with premium cigars. For Patricia, French perfumes and artisanal chocolates from her favorite Parisian chocolatier. For Ashley and Tom, champagne and a collection of books by authors they loved. I even scheduled subtle property improvements that I knew would appeal specifically to them. The garden outside Patricia's villa was replanted with her favorite flowers. The fitness center received new equipment that Tom, a fitness enthusiast, would appreciate. The art collection was temporarily enhanced with pieces by artists William had mentioned admiring. During this preparation frenzy, I received a call from Patricia that should have been my first warning. "Isla, dear James tells me you've arranged for us to stay at Serenity Shores next month." She began, her voice carrying that distinctive tone of polite disapproval I'd come to recognize. "Yes, I've made all the arrangements," I confirmed. "It's a beautiful property. I think you'll really enjoy it." "Well, that's very thoughtful, but I was just speaking with Caroline Brighton, and she mentioned that the Cliffside Manor has been completely renovated. You know the Brightons have been going there for generations. I wonder if we might consider that instead." I took a deep breath. "Serenity Shores is truly exceptional, Patricia. I've arranged for the best accommodations and experiences. I'd love for you to give it a chance." A pause then. "I suppose we can try your suggestion this time. I just hope it's appropriate for our standards. The Brightons are quite particular, as you know." I bit back the urge to tell her that the Brightons had actually tried to book my resort for their anniversary, but had been turned away due to being fully booked. Instead, I assured her once more that they would be comfortable. James noticed my tension after the call. "Don't worry so much," he said, massaging my shoulders. "Mom will love it once she sees the place. She's just resistant to new experiences." I wanted to believe him. I needed to believe that my efforts would finally bridge the gap between Patricia and me. The day before their arrival, I made a final inspection of the property. The fountains in the main courtyard danced with perfectly timed jets of water. The infinity pools reflected the cloudless blue sky. The pristine white beach had been groomed to perfection. The gardens burst with tropical flowers, their fragrance carried on the gentle ocean breeze. Every staff member had been briefed on the special guests arriving, but sworn to secrecy about my ownership. I had even arranged for a local photographer to discreetly capture family moments throughout their stay, planning to present them with a custom photo book as a parting gift. Standing on the balcony of the owner's residence that evening, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold, I allowed myself to hope. Tomorrow my husband's family would arrive and they would finally see me through new eyes. They would understand that I was worthy of their son, their family name, their acceptance. I fell asleep that night filled with anticipation, unaware that I was about to face the most painful rejection of my life. The morning of my in-laws' arrival brought perfect weather, as if even nature was cooperating with my plans. I stationed myself discreetly in the lobby, wanting to observe their first reactions without them noticing me. James stood at the main entrance, ready to greet his family personally. The black luxury SUV I had arranged pulled up precisely on schedule. William emerged first, stretching his tall frame after the drive from the airport. Patricia followed, large sunglasses hiding her expression as she surveyed the property. Ashley and Tom stepped out last, already looking relaxed in their vacation attire. "This is quite impressive," I heard William remark as he took in the soaring ceilings of the open-air lobby with its massive crystal chandeliers and panoramic ocean views. Patricia removed her sunglasses slowly. "It's certainly grand," she said, her tone suggesting she was reserving judgment. Ashley's reaction was more immediate. "Oh my God, this place is amazing. Tom, look at that infinity pool. And is that a swim-up bar?" I couldn't help smiling as I watched them take in the property. After giving them a moment to absorb their surroundings, I approached as if I had just arrived myself. "Welcome to Serenity Shores," I said, warmly embracing each of them. "I hope your drive from the airport was comfortable." "The car service was excellent," William confirmed. "Though I'm still not clear on how you managed to get reservations here. I tried to book this place for a corporate retreat last year and was told they were fully committed for 18 months. Before I could respond with my prepared explanation about industry connections, Patricia interjected. "I suppose in your line of work you must know people who can pull strings," she said with a thin smile. "Though I'm curious how you're affording the owner's residence. James mentioned that's where you two are staying. I looked it up online and the nightly rate is, well, extraordinary." James quickly stepped in. "Let's get you all checked in and settled. The staff will handle your luggage. I think you'll love your accommodations." I maintained my composure as we walked through the property toward their villas. I had arranged for welcome cocktails to be waiting on their private terraces, along with fresh fruit platters and chilled towels scented with the resort's signature lemongrass fragrance. Patricia's eyes widened slightly as we entered her villa. The spacious living area opened onto an expansive terrace with unobstructed ocean views. Fresh flowers filled crystal vases throughout the space, and the custom welcome basket sat prominently on the dining table. "The master suite is through those doors," I explained, pointing to the double doors on the right. "You'll find your bathroom has both an indoor rainfall shower and an outdoor soaking tub with complete privacy. William, there's a small office set up for you as well, though I hope you won't need to work much." William nodded appreciatively. "This is truly beautiful. Thank you for arranging this, Isla." Patricia was examining the welcome basket, lifting the bottles of perfume and boxes of chocolates. "How did you know these were my favorites?" she asked, genuine surprise in her voice. "James mentioned them once." I lied, not wanting to reveal that I had researched her preferences extensively. "I thought you might enjoy them during your stay." For just a moment, I saw something soften in Patricia's expression, but it was quickly replaced by her usual calculated smile. "Very thoughtful. Though these chocolates are best enjoyed fresh in Paris, they're never quite the same when imported." James shot me an apologetic look as we left his parents to settle in and moved on to show Ashley and Tom their suite. Their reaction was much more enthusiastic, with Ashley squealing in delight at the champagne and Tom immediately checking out the private plunge pool on their terrace. "This is incredible, Isla," Ashley gushed. "I can't believe you arranged all this. We needed this vacation so badly." The first dinner together was held at the resort's signature restaurant, Ocean Terrace. I had reserved the best table on the outdoor patio, perfectly positioned to watch the sunset, while enjoying a 7-course tasting menu prepared specially by the executive chef. Throughout the meal, I noticed Patricia questioning the server about the property's ownership and management. "This resort seems relatively new," she commented, as we enjoyed the third course, a delicate local fish crudo with citrus and fresh herbs. "Who are the owners? Anyone we might know from the Boston social circle?" The server, well briefed, responded smoothly. "The ownership information is private, ma'am, but I can assure you the property is managed to the highest standards of luxury hospitality." Patricia's eyes narrowed slightly. "Interesting. It almost feels like a corporate retreat property, rather than a true luxury experience. Don't you think, William? It lacks that personal touch of family-owned establishments like the Brighton's Preferred Hotel." I felt my cheeks flush, but maintained my smile. James quickly changed the subject, asking his father about a recent business deal, and the moment passed. The next morning brought our first full day at the resort. I had arranged a private beach area for the family with dedicated attendants to provide towels, refreshments, and anything else they might need. As we settled onto the plush loungers under large umbrellas, I felt myself finally beginning to relax. Perhaps today would be different. Patricia arrived last, impeccably dressed in a designer cover-up and wide-brimmed hat. She surveyed our setup with critical eyes. "Isla, dear, you're going to burn in that swimsuit. Your skin isn't accustomed to this level of sun exposure like ours is from our summers in the Hamptons." Before I could respond, she continued, addressing no one in particular. "It's always obvious when someone didn't grow up with proper sun protection education. My dermatologist in Boston says he can always tell a person's background by their sun damage." I felt James tense beside me, but predictably he said nothing. William appeared absorbed in his book while Ashley and Tom exchanged uncomfortable glances. Throughout the day, Patricia peppered her conversation with similar barbs, each one carefully crafted to emphasize my different background. Comments about my hair, so naturally textured, how fortunate you don't need expensive treatments. My career choice, hospitality is such honest work. And even my childlessness. I suppose your career leaves little time for family planning, though James would make such a wonderful father. Each comment landed like a tiny dart precisely aimed at my insecurities. By late afternoon, I excused myself to take a business call, needing a break from the constant subtle attacks. As I walked back to our villa, I questioned whether this vacation had been a mistake. Instead of bringing us closer, it seemed to be highlighting the gulf between my world and theirs. Still, I was determined to make the evening better. We had 3 more days, and I hadn't yet revealed my ownership. Perhaps that would change everything. I had no idea that within hours, the facade of family harmony would shatter completely, forcing me to make a decision that would alter the course of my marriage and my life. The confrontation that changed everything began innocuously enough. We had gathered in the main villa living room for pre-dinner drinks. The evening sun cast a golden glow across the space, reflecting off the crystal glasses and creating an atmosphere that should have been peaceful and connecting. I had just returned from handling a small issue with the kitchen regarding William's dietary preferences. As the resort owner, I wanted everything to be perfect, even if my in-laws didn't yet know my role. "Sorry for stepping away," I said as I rejoined the group, accepting a glass of champagne from James. I wanted to make sure everything was set for dinner. Patricia, already on her second martini, gave me a pointed look. "That's the 3rd time today you've disappeared to make calls or handle something. This is supposed to be a family vacation, Isla. In our family, we prioritize togetherness during these special times." Her emphasis on "our family" wasn't subtle, but I tried to maintain my composure. "I apologize if it seemed I was distracted. I just want everyone to have a wonderful experience." "Isla works hard." James added, his attempt at defense lukewarm at best. "It's difficult for her to disconnect completely." Patricia's laugh held no warmth. "Well, some of us understand that family comes first. When William was building his business, he never missed a family dinner or vacation. That's the difference between old money and new, I suppose. Values and priorities." I felt heat rising to my face, but took a slow sip of champagne instead of responding immediately. This was hardly the first subtle dig Patricia had made about my background, but something about being in my own resort, a place I had built from nothing, made her dismissal sting more sharply. "I value family very much," I said carefully, "which is why I wanted to share this beautiful place with all of you." Patricia waved her hand dismissively. "Yet you're constantly checking your phone or disappearing to make arrangements. I've barely seen you relax or truly engage. It makes one wonder where your priorities truly lie." William cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Patricia, I'm sure Isla is doing her best. The resort is lovely and we're grateful for the invitation." "Thank you, William," I said, sincerely appreciating his attempt at peace. But Patricia wasn't finished. She placed her martini glass down with deliberate care and straightened her already perfect posture. "The truth is, Isla, I've been concerned about your influence on James since you met. He used to understand family obligations. Now he lives across the country, rarely visits, and seems to have adopted your priorities." Ashley and Tom exchanged uncomfortable glances. The tension in the room had become palpable. "Mom, that's not fair," Ashley said quietly. "James and Isla have built a life together based on what makes them happy." Patricia's eyes narrowed. "Family isn't about individual happiness, Ashley. It's about legacy, continuity, and shared values. James was raised to understand that." Something in me snapped. After 3 years of enduring Patricia's subtle undermining and James's failure to truly stand up for me, I couldn't remain silent. "What exactly are you saying, Patricia?" "That I don't understand family values because I wasn't born into wealth, that my work ethic somehow makes me less worthy of being part of your family." The room fell silent. James placed a hand on my arm, a gesture meant to calm that only irritated me further. I shrugged it off. Patricia's expression hardened. What I'm saying, dear, is that perhaps you need to decide whether you want to be part of this family or continue prioritizing your career above all else. Real family requires sacrifice and understanding traditions that go back generations. Real family. I repeated, my voice dangerously quiet. What exactly makes a real family in your eyes, Patricia? She straightened the pearls at her neck, a nervous habit I'd noticed over the years. Blood, history, shared values and understanding, things that unfortunately can't be acquired like a business property. The implication was crystal clear. After 3 years of marriage, she still considered me an outsider, a business acquisition rather than a family member. I see, I said, my voice steady despite the storm of emotions inside me. And what do you think, James, am I real family? All eyes turned to my husband. This was his moment to stand up for our marriage, to declare unequivocally that I was his family now. I watched his face, saw the conflict there, the discomfort with confrontation that had been bred into him since childhood. Of course you're family, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. Mom is just old-fashioned. She doesn't mean anything by it. Patricia seized on his weakness immediately. James understands where he comes from, even if he's temporarily forgotten. This vacation was a lovely gesture, Isla, but perhaps it's highlighted some fundamental differences in our values. She stood smoothing her linen pants. I think we need some family time, just the Ramirez's. This house is for real family, only to have important conversations about our future. Perhaps you could give us some space tonight, Isla. The silence that followed was deafening. Ashley looked horrified. Tom studied his shoes. William seemed frozen in place. But it was James's reaction that shattered me. Instead of immediately rejecting his mother's outrageous suggestion, he hesitated. And in that hesitation, I saw the truth of our marriage. Honey, he finally said, his voice gentle as if speaking to a child. Maybe it would be best if you did go back to our villa for a bit. Cool off. We'll talk later after everyone's had a chance to calm down. In that moment, something crystallized within me. 3 years of hoping for acceptance, of making excuses for Patricia's behavior, of watching James fail to truly stand up for our marriage, all distilled into perfect clarity. I smiled, which seemed to confuse everyone in the room. Without a word, I reached for my phone. What are you doing? James asked, a note of worry entering his voice. Calling security, I replied calmly, pressing the direct line to the head of resort security. Patricia laughed incredulously. Security? Don't be dramatic, Isla. This is a family matter. The phone connected and I spoke clearly. This is Isla Ramirez. I need a security team at the owner's residence immediately. I have guests who need to be escorted off the property. James's face paled. Isla, what are you doing? You can't just call security on my family. I ended the call and looked directly at Patricia. Actually, I can. And they're not being escorted off the property because they're your family. They're being escorted out because they're in my house, and I've decided it's for real family only. The confusion on their faces might have been comical if the situation hadn't been so painful. Patricia recovered first, her expression shifting from shock to indignation. What nonsense is this, your house? We're staying in the resort's premium villa, not your property. Before I could respond, there was a polite knock at the door. Marcus, my head of security, entered with 2 team members. All were dressed in impeccable suits, with the subtle Serenity Shores logo pin on their lapels. Ms. Ramirez, Marcus said with a respectful nod. How can we assist you this evening? Patricia's eyes darted between Marcus and me, confusion evident in her expression. Why is he calling you Ms. Ramirez, and why is he acting as if you're in charge? I straightened my shoulders and addressed Marcus directly. These guests will be checking out immediately. Please have their belongings packed and move to the Bayview Hotel in town. Their stay there will be covered, but they are no longer welcome at Serenity Shores. William finally found his voice. There must be some misunderstanding. We're the guests of James and Isla Ramirez. Marcus looked to me for guidance, and I nodded. Perhaps this is the time for clarity. Marcus, would you please explain my position at this resort to my guests? Marcus turned to the bewildered group. Ms. Ramirez is the owner and CEO of Shoreline Luxury Properties, which includes Serenity Shores Resort. This is her flagship property designed to her specifications and operated under her direct supervision. The owner's residence where you've been staying is Ms. Ramirez's personal property." The silence that followed was profound. Patricia's mouth opened and closed without sound. William's eyebrows shot up in genuine surprise. Ashley looked between her parents and me with dawning understanding. James stepped toward me. "Isla, why didn't you tell me you owned this place? I knew you were expanding your business, but this is extraordinary." "I wanted it to be a surprise," I said quietly. "I thought if your family experienced the resort first as guests, they might finally see my value." Clearly, I was mistaken. Patricia had recovered enough to attempt damage control. "Isla, dear, obviously there's been a terrible misunderstanding. I had no idea this was your property. My comments were simply concern about family time, not any reflection on your accomplishments." Her insincerity was transparent. After years of subtle digs and dismissals, this last-minute attempt to salvage her vacation privileges felt hollow and insulting. "Let me show you something," I said, my voice steady, despite the emotions churning inside me. "Follow me, please." I led the stunned group through the main lobby, pointing out features as we walked. The chandelier was custom designed to reflect the ocean patterns when the sunlight hits it just right. The marble was sourced from the same quarry used for Williams' office building in Boston, a detail I included specifically thinking you might appreciate it. We continued to the eastern wing of the resort. "This conference center," I said, pushing open the double doors to reveal a state-of-the-art meeting facility, "was named after my mentor who gave me my first real opportunity in this industry." The plaque beside the door clearly read, "Sandra Thompson Conference Center at Serenity Shores Resort, a shoreline luxury property, by Isla Ramirez." Patricia's face had grown increasingly pale as we walked. Every building, every significant space featured my name somewhere, on plaques, on subtle insignias on the foundation stones of buildings. "And here," I said, stopping at the resort's central plaza with its spectacular fountain, "is where we host our annual charity gala that has raised over $2 million for educational scholarships for underprivileged youth interested in hospitality careers." The large donor wall prominently featured the Isla Ramirez Foundation at the highest giving level. William was the first to speak. "This is remarkably impressive, Isla. Truly. I had no idea the extent of your business success." James looked shell-shocked. "Why didn't you tell me all this time you let me think we were just guests here?" "Would it have changed how you responded when your mother suggested I leave my own property?" I asked quietly. "Would knowing I owned this place have made you stand up for me when it mattered?" He had no answer, and his silence spoke volumes. Ashley stepped forward and touched my arm gently. "Isla, I'm so sorry. What Mom said was wrong and we should have spoken up more clearly." Patricia had recovered her composure enough to attempt one last salvage of the situation. "Well, this certainly puts things in a different light. Had we known naturally, we would have expressed more appreciation for your achievement." "That's exactly why I didn't tell you," I replied. "I wanted to be valued as a person, as family, not for what I own or what I've built. And I got my answer tonight." I turned to Marcus, who had been waiting discreetly nearby. "Please ensure Mr. and Mrs. Ramirez's belongings are transferred to the Bayview Hotel. Ashley and Tom may stay if they wish." "And James?" Marcus asked carefully. I looked at my husband, the man who had failed to defend me in the moment I needed him most. "That depends on what James decides right now. Where does your loyalty lie, James? With the family you were born into, or the one you chose when you married me?" James looked torn, exactly as he had earlier. "Isla, be reasonable. You can't just throw my parents out. We can work through this misunderstanding." His continued attempt to minimize what had happened was the final confirmation I needed. "Actually, I can. And it's not a misunderstanding. It's a pattern that's finally become clear to me." I turned to Marcus. "Mr. Ramirez will be joining his parents at the Bayview." As security began to escort them toward the exit, I added one final comment. "Before you go, you should know that I have plans for tomorrow. Special plans that I think will be particularly educational for all of you." A car will pick you up at 10 in the morning to bring you back to the resort for a brief visit. I suggest you don't miss it." Patricia looked like she might argue, but William placed a restraining hand on her arm. They walked out in stunned silence, leaving me standing alone in the grand lobby of the resort I had built from nothing but determination and vision. As the doors closed behind them, I finally allowed myself to feel the full weight of what had just happened. My marriage, my relationship with my in-laws, the future I had imagined, all altered irrevocably in a single evening. Yet alongside the pain, I felt something unexpected relief. For the first time in 3 years, I had stopped accepting less than I deserved. I had stood in my power and demanded respect. Whatever came next would be on my terms, not Patricia's. I returned to the owner's residence, sat on the terrace overlooking the ocean, and watched the stars emerge in the night sky. Tomorrow would bring a new chapter, one I would write myself. Morning arrived with the gentle sound of waves and birds welcoming the new day. I had slept surprisingly well, as if shedding the weight of others' expectations had allowed me true rest for the first time in years. I rose early and prepared for what I knew would be a pivotal day. At precisely 10 o'clock, the resort's luxury SUV returned with my estranged husband and in-laws. They looked uncomfortable and uncertain as they were escorted to the main lawn overlooking the beach. Ashley and Tom had decided to join them, having checked out of their suite out of family solidarity, but expressing genuine regret about the previous night's events. I greeted them formally, maintaining professional courtesy despite the personal turmoil. "Thank you for coming. What you're about to see is something I arranged weeks ago, unrelated to last night's events, but perhaps more meaningful now." As we stood there, a fleet of buses pulled up to the resort entrance. One by one, families began to disembark, children running excitedly toward the beach, parents looking around in wonder at the luxury surroundings. "What is this?" Patricia asked, her voice betraying confusion and a hint of disapproval at the sudden influx of strangers. "This," I explained, "is the Sunshine Dreams program. Every month we host families who could never afford to stay at a resort like this. Children battling serious illnesses, families who have lost homes to natural disasters, veterans and their loved ones. Today, 50 families will experience Serenity Shores as honored guests." The lawn and beach quickly filled with laughter and excitement. Resort staff distributed welcome packages, led tours, and treated each family with the same exceptional service afforded to the wealthiest guests. "You're giving away rooms that cost thousands per night." Patricia couldn't hide her shock. "That seems like poor business practice." William surprised me by responding before I could. "It's actually brilliant business, Patricia. The goodwill and publicity from programs like this are invaluable. Plus, it's the right thing to do." I nodded appreciation to William before addressing Patricia directly. "Last night you spoke about real family, as if it's defined by blood and social standing. I want to show you what family means to me." I led them to a quiet observation point where we could watch the activities unfolding on the beach. A young girl with a headscarf, clearly undergoing cancer treatment, was being taught to paddleboard by one of our recreation staff. Nearby, a veteran with a prosthetic leg built a sandcastle with his children, his face alight with joy. "These people will remember this day for the rest of their lives," I said quietly. "Not because of the luxury, but because someone cared enough to create this experience for them. That's what I do. I create spaces where people feel valued, whether they're billionaires or facing life's greatest challenges." I turned to face my in-laws directly. "Last night made me realize something important. I've spent 3 years trying to earn a place in your family, Patricia. I compromised, apologized, and diminished myself, hoping you would eventually see me as worthy." My voice remained steady as I continued. "But I built all this without your approval or acceptance. I created my own definition of family through the community I've built, the staff who work with me, and the guests who trust us with their precious memories. That's real family to me, and it has nothing to do with bloodlines or social status." Patricia's expression remained guarded, but I noticed she was watching the families with something resembling interest rather than disdain. I felt James's presence beside me before he spoke. "Isla, can we talk privately?" We moved to a secluded garden area, leaving his family to observe the beach activities. For a moment we stood in silence, the gap between us seeming wider than mere physical distance. "I failed you last night," he finally said, his voice heavy with regret. I've been failing you for years by not standing up to my mother, by asking you to tolerate her behavior for the sake of peace. I studied his face, the face I had loved and trusted. Yes, you have. He winced at my directness but nodded. I don't expect you to forgive me immediately, but I want you to know that I see it now. I see how I've been caught between two worlds, and instead of building something new with you, I've been trying to keep one foot in my parents' world. Why didn't you tell me about all this? He asked, gesturing toward the resort. Did you not trust me? I wanted to surprise you, I admitted. But maybe there was more to it. Maybe I knew that your reaction would tell me something important about our relationship. James looked pained. And my reaction told you that I wasn't the partner you thought I was. It showed me that when pushed to choose, you hesitate. And in that hesitation, I have my answer. He reached for my hand, and after a moment, I allowed the contact. What happens now, Isla, is our marriage over because of one terrible mistake. I withdrew my hand gently. I don't know yet. What I do know is that I need space to heal and think clearly. You need time to decide who you want to be, independent of your parents' expectations, or even my expectations. And if I want to fight for our marriage to prove I can be the partner you deserve, then you'll respect my need for space right now. You'll go back to our home, start individual therapy to understand why you've allowed your mother's behavior for so long, and give me time to decide what I want. He looked like he might argue, but then nodded. I'll do whatever it takes. I love you, Isla. That's never been the question. Love isn't the question, I agreed. It's whether love is enough when respect and loyalty are missing. We rejoined his family, who had been watching the beach activities with varying expressions. William appeared genuinely moved. Ashley and Tom were helping some of the children build sandcastles. Even Patricia seemed less rigid, observing everything with thoughtful consideration rather than judgment. It's time for you to leave, I said, not unkindly. Your car will take you back to the Bayview, and arrangements have been made for your flights home tomorrow. William approached me directly. Isla, for what it's worth, I'm impressed not just by what you've built, but by how you've built it. Your values are evident in every aspect of this place. Patricia remained silent, her expression unreadable. Whether my demonstration had affected her thinking, I couldn't tell. Perhaps it didn't matter anymore. I was no longer measuring my worth by her approval. As they prepared to leave, I addressed them one final time. Whatever happens between James and me going forward, I hope today has shown you something about who I am, beyond the labels and assumptions you've placed on me. After they departed, I remained on the beach, watching the families enjoying their special day. A small girl approached me shyly, offering a seashell she had found. This is for you, she said. Thank you for letting us come to your pretty hotel. As I accepted her gift, I felt tears threaten for the first time since the confrontation. This small gesture of genuine appreciation meant more than all the social acceptance Patricia's world could offer. 6 months passed before I agreed to see James again. During that time, I focused on healing, on reconnecting with my own value, separate from my marriage or anyone's approval. I expanded the Sunshine Dreams program, finding profound fulfillment in using my success to create joy for others. James kept his word about respecting my space while demonstrating his commitment to change. He sent thoughtful letters detailing his therapy insights, never pressuring me for reconciliation, but making it clear he hoped for another chance. To my surprise, William reached out independently, asking to meet when he was in town for business. Over lunch, he apologized for his passive role in years of subtle mistreatment. I allowed Patricia's behavior because it was easier than confronting decades of ingrained attitudes, he admitted. That was cowardice, not kindness. Even more surprisingly, he mentioned that he and Patricia had begun marriage counseling, partly inspired by the events at my resort. Seeing what you've built, how you lead with both strength and compassion, made me question many things I've accepted without thought, he explained. Patricia is struggling, but she's trying. That's more than I expected, honestly. When I finally agreed to meet James, it was at a neutral location, a quiet restaurant halfway between my resort and our home. He looked different, somehow more grounded in himself. I've been doing a lot of thinking, he said after our initial greetings. About who I am apart from my family name, apart from you, apart from anyone's expectations. "And what have you discovered?" I asked. "That I've been a coward," he said simply. "That I've allowed fear of conflict to override my responsibility to protect the people I love. That I've hidden behind politeness instead of standing for what's right." We talked for hours more honestly than we had in our entire relationship. About his childhood in the shadow of impossible expectations. About my fears of never being good enough despite my success. About what we might build together if we chose to try again, not as the people we had been, but as the people we were becoming. It wasn't a magical reconciliation. Trust once broken doesn't mend easily. But it was a beginning founded on truth rather than compromise. We agreed to begin couples therapy while continuing our individual work, to establish clear boundaries with his family, to rebuild slowly with eyes wide open. A year after that fateful night at Serenity Shores, we hosted another family gathering at the resort. This time, there were no secrets or hidden agendas. Patricia arrived with less rigid posture and more genuine interest in the resort operations. She and I would never be close, but we had reached a détente based on mutual respect, if not affection. Ashley and Tom became unexpected allies, serving as bridges between James and his parents when tensions arose. William developed a genuine interest in my business approach, occasionally offering valuable advice from his years of experience. Most importantly, James found his voice. He no longer hesitated to address inappropriate comments or behavior from his mother or anyone else. The man who had once asked me to leave my own home to appease his mother now stood firmly by my side, not because I needed his protection, but because he had claimed his own integrity. Standing on the beach at sunset, watching our now extended family interact with the latest group of Sunshine Dreams participants, I reflected on the journey that had brought us here. The pain that had seemed unbearable had ultimately led to growth and authenticity I might never have found otherwise. "No regrets?" James asked, joining me at the shoreline. "No regrets," I confirmed. "Just lessons learned and boundaries earned." The little girl who had given me the seashell a year earlier was back with her family now in remission from her cancer. She waved from where she was building a sandcastle with her brother, and I waved back, my heart full. Family, I had discovered, wasn't defined by blood or background or anyone else's approval. It was created through respect, courage, and the willingness to stand in your truth, even when it would be easier to compromise. My journey had taught me that sometimes you have to be willing to lose everything to discover what you truly deserve. What about you? Have you ever had to stand up to family members who couldn't see your worth? Share your story in the comments below. And if this resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life lessons on setting boundaries and creating the life you deserve. Remember, sometimes the family we choose is more important than the family we're born into. Thank you for listening, and may you always have the courage to stand in your own power.